For my behavior observation, I chose to focus on the foraging behavior of the white Chinese goose. It's a medium-sized water bird that forages on both land and water vegetation. During land foraging, the goose will bend its head down, clamp its bill on the grass, and pulls its head back swiftly in order to tear out the grass. In this video, you will see the goose water foraging as well. It bends its whole head and neck near the water to take a first look, then plunges its neck and head below the water while keeping its body floating on the surface. It also uses its feet to maneuver its body in the right position. In relation to the four hypotheses, I am focusing my attention on why the white Chinese goose forages on both land and water vegetation. Tinbergen's first level of analysis dealing with causation is in relation to things like the environment and nutrients. My hypothesis for this level, based on the behavior I chose, is that this dual foraging technique could have arose due to a changing environment. For example, if the dry land vegetation was not getting the correct amount of rainfall to obtain the necessary nutrients the goose needs, then it could switch to water foraging in order to obtain other nutrients that it may be lacking. Kevin A. Wood, 2014, supports my hypothesis by saying, foragers typically attempt to consume food resources that offer the greatest energy gain for the least cost. Switching between habitats as the most profitable food resource changes over time, which supports my idea on the environment changing. The next level of analysis is development, which relates to the learning of behavior, including ideas like imprinting. I hypothesize that this foraging behavior could have been brought up due to the idea that the goose saw his or her mother foraging on both water and land and chose to do the same behavior as her, learning along the way what techniques work best. A study by Larson and Forsland suggested that there is a sense of fidelity to the grazing sites of geese. They found that daughters would end up taking their brood who couldn't fly to the same grazing sites that their mothers had taken them to. This would support my hypothesis because the mothers would have had to teach their children where to go, which could be started by the process of imprinting. The third level of Tinbergen's levels of analysis is evolution, which related to the ancestry or inheritance of the behavior. My hypothesis for evolution is that the white Chinese goose inherited this behavior due to the fact that in the past the goose may have only foraged on plants, but in rough times began to forage on water vegetation, or the other way around. This in turn would lead to the genes that were adapted to switch habitats or techniques of foraging. If the goose were able to survive with this new dual foraging behavior, then these adapted genes will be passed on along the lineage. A study by Canarak 2008 suggests that it is those individuals who are capable of strategically adapting to environmental changes and consequently optimize their fitness who eventually influence the gene pool. I believe this supports my hypothesis because behaviors can be adapted throughout time, which allows for evolution to occur from ancestors to present-day organisms. The final level of analysis is the function of behavior. This includes the idea of a behavior having a current fitness benefit with examples like mate acquisition, predator avoidance, and food location. I hypothesize that this behavior is present because foraging is necessary in order for an organism to survive because it has to eat and obtain nutrients. This relates to the health of the bird, which could also lead to how well a bird is able to reproduce. My hypothesis is supported when a study by Gates 2001 suggests that survival and reproduction are affected by the body condition of a goose, in which the body condition is determined by the food available at that time. With that being said, I believe this shows that food and foraging play a major role in survival of a goose along with any animal. The dual foraging technique is able to provide fitness benefits to the white Chinese goose. To relate this behavior to class, I am making the assumption that the behavior would be that of a specialist. This is because the white Chinese goose has a high abundance of grass and water vegetation that it can eat, and does not have to worry about competition for it. Also, because the other two ducks stay with the goose during foraging as well as throughout the whole day, I would say that they use some form of overt communication because they obviously do not mind each other being there. This communication could be handy because since the goose I observed was the only one of its type in this habitat, then communication with the other ducks could play a bigger role. Having honest communication can form bonds that allow for the goose to receive support and group protection with the ducks. And that concludes my presentation on the white Chinese goose.